The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production.
I think, Kev, people are now, if we weren't before tired of this thing, officially now tired, when people start getting antsy with each other on official company tweets. I read this last night. Reese tweeted, "Good morning to Avanti West Coast." This is the train line, Kev. "Good morning. I'm a bit disappointed to see you've cancelled IP38 0548 WVH BPN, as this means I'm stuck. Can you advise what I should do? Thanks in advance." Avanti West Coast tweeted straight away back to him, "I'm sorry, Reese. I'm disappointed there's a pandemic. You can catch the next service. Sean." I think that is tweet of the year. Oh, dear, Kev. Are we going to get there, Kev? Are we going to, is there going to be a New Year snog between us both?
That's definitely not going to happen.
You've had a busy old week though, haven't you? God, look at you. I mean, you've literally, if you've not walked it, you've driven a marathon.
I've been everywhere. Just take my car for 3 days practically.
I know, but you lost your voice. Take me through that mammoth journey that you did.
Okay, so it was a 7-hour drive, followed by then the next day an 11-hour wedding, followed by the next day a street photography workshop, followed by, straight after the street photography workshop, a 6-hour drive, followed by the day after that a commercial shoot, followed by a 5-hour drive home.
God, you are officially a Superman.
The FujiCast.
You are. Did you travel with your suit on? You rip it off, Super Kev. You must.
I listened to 2 audiobooks. It was great. I loved it.
I bet you did. You must have
listened to the news once. It was brilliant. I just locked the whole outside world out of my car and had a big smiley face all the way down the M6, M1, A1, M42, M62, M5, roadworks around Birmingham, Manchester. A big delay because of the bus problem. All of that, yeah.
But you had a big smile on your face. In that length of journey, Kev, you must have used up every single smile you're officially allowed to use.
Yeah, I think I've got a load left in reserve because I don't think I've used one since like June.
Right, well, welcome to the FujiCast, you and your questions. It's the last one of this year because we're taking a break next week over Christmas, and then we rejoin you once New Year has started. So it's you and your questions from our electronic mailbag, and of course also through the FujiCast private Facebook group that you're welcome to become a part of. If you would like to send a mail, click at fujicast.co.uk, or of course, as I say, send it through the private Facebook group. If you're not a Fujifilm shooter, do not worry, it's a big community. Whatever flavour you shoot, you're very welcome. We have a guest. Do we have a book of the week this week, Kev? Or
no.
No book, but we do have a guest. We do have a guest. Casey Orr.
Casey Orr, yeah, what a wonderful person.
Tell me about Casey then.
Casey's a photographer, American photographer, but based up in Yorkshire.
All right.
And she's a very interesting projects. Yeah, so you'll hear more in the interview.
I wonder, do you know which part of America she hailed from?
Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm. I want to go into Philadelphia, Freedom by Elton John every time I hear Philadelphia, but I wonder how you go from Philadelphia to do you say the north of England?
Yorkshire.
Yorkshire, yeah. I mean, Yorkshire's
on an aeroplane, isn't it?
Yeah. I get.
Although, actually, if you listen to the interview,
yeah,
there is another way.
Oh, is there? Well, boat. That's the way that Greta travels.
You have to listen to the interview.
Oh, well, no, yeah, let's not do a spoiler.
No.
Right, yes, it is the last one of the year, Kev. That's it, 2021 gone. What do you want to say to 2021? What's Kev's official word to 2021?
Don't come back. I can't. 2021. It's had its ups and downs, hasn't it? But I can't believe it's 2022. It's about 2022. We're straddling centuries now. You know, in 100 years' time, or when imagine, right? So think back to 1981.
Kev, we straddled the century 22 years ago, nearly.
Yeah, but I mean, we're the straddling is in the middle now, rather than most of it was last century and most of it this century. Now we're kind of roughly in the middle of it.
That's a bit mathematic, poetic license, Kev. How long do you intend to live?
Forever. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I'm going to cryogeneticize myself. No, but imagine, think back to when you're like 1981 and stuff like that, and you're looking in your history books at school, and it was like, First World War, 1917, 1920, all the stuff that, all the stuff that happened in that period. And you were thinking, God, that was millions of years ago. And now we're in that future century, 100 years later, we're at that period of time that is, we're at the cutting edge of everything now. But in a very short 60 years time, 2060, 2081, we'll be like, oh, all that stuff they went through in 2022 pandemic. They used to use those funny little plastic things to make telephone calls and, all of that stuff. They used to go and visit each other.
Can you imagine that? A camera. Oh, just take a picture with your eyes. Send it to you. We wouldn't even have a computer. What will replace computers? You'll just think it'll be there. Yeah. Frightening.
We'll all have our own little Elon Musk in the corner of the room that does everything for us.
Well, it will blow up Elon. Did you ever work out, by the way, how old, what the year would be when you were 70 years old? Thinking, oh, that's years away. And it's horribly closer than I'd care to think about now.
No, I'd never really thought about that, but I do know what year it will be, and yeah, it is horribly close.
And also when music, I used to listen to Dad's tapes in the tapes, what's tape? In the car, and he'd play the Beatles and stuff. And for me, that would seem like it was eons ago, but actually, it was less time at that time. Anyway, it was less time before than when I think back to, I don't know. For some reason, Kajagoogoo and Lamal have come to mind. Must have been last week talking about now that's what I call music. That's actually older music than when my dad used to listen to the Beatles. And I'd think, oh, Dad, you're so old. The Beatles? Huh.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Yeah, that's us now.
Yeah, that's
anyway, we have had a couple of new patrons, so I'm going to read their names out.
Yeah, do that. Before we depress ourselves about age.
To get us off the age trade. Omar Barak, thank you. James Roberts, Richard Wadekind, and Daniel. Just calls himself Daniel. Yeah, thank you guys for your support on the Patreon. And if anybody wants to join them, go to our Patreon page.
Daniel, you're a star. Another musical reference. Elton John.
Oh, God.
There's a song in everyone.
I liked Elton John. I didn't ever really like the Beatles, I have to say.
No. Well, Richard Wiedekamp, by the way. I'm sure Richard was the one that was...
Did I read his name out wrong?
Well, no, I think you got it right. No, but I recognise the name because during the week, and he hasn't answered my email. I'll have another check, but during the week he sent us something about NFTs and actually selling our very old editions back to the public because they are considered first editions, like a book, Kev.
Was that the same person, was it?
I'm pretty sure it was Richard. But I did write back to him because I was very confused about selling something that you can easily just... The other day I just whipped back on the app and I found all our original episodes, all sitting there free of charge. So I wasn't quite sure what he meant by it, but he hadn't responded to it. And I wondered if it got lost in the translation. Maybe it did.
Yeah, maybe
it did. But I can guarantee we're not NFTing ourselves on first editions.
I have no idea what you're talking about. But anyway, back to the questions.
Yeah, go on then. You go first with Facebook.
Okay, latest question into the questions for the show thread is by Paul Waring. He says, do you think Fujifilm will ever make a left-handed camera? Perhaps it could have a flippy floppy screen to the right and maybe us left-eyed shooters could finally have a camera touchscreen that we don't press our noses with all day.
It would only affect the two cameras, of course, wouldn't it? Stylistically, Pro and X100.
Yeah, I think so. The rest of them most of them at least that I can think of, have their viewfinders slap bang in the middle.
Yeah.
So regardless whether you're left or right-eyed, you're still going to have the same kind of ergonomicness on your face.
Yeah.
But yeah, the X100 X Pro is definitely designed for right-eyed people. But as everybody knows, right-eyed people are the best.
What? I'm a left-eye shooter. And you're going to say, yeah, I'm a left-eye shooter. So
How can you be a left-eyed shooter? I don't get that.
Well, I am. It's just like, how can you be an animal with four legs? I just don't get that. Just because people do differently to the Mullins way doesn't mean it's wrong. Vive la différence. It's just an eye preference thing, Kev, isn't it? Everybody has a...
Are you left-handed?
No, right-handed. But
what about your feet?
Wow.
What would you kick a football with?
I'm more accurate with my left foot, but the power comes to my right foot. It is unusual, but it's called what's it called? Cross dominance.
Yeah, well, that's weird. Then you should go into an experiment.
I can curl a ball like Beckham with my left foot, but with my right foot, it's just a toe punt all the way. 50 mile an hour toe punt. Yeah.
I don't know how many left-eyed people are in the world. I would imagine it's a very, very small amount compared to the right-eyed people, and that's probably what dictates the making of a left-eyed versus right-eyed camera.
There is a way of checking what your dominant eye is. I'll look up. We'll put a link for it on the show page today. There's a couple of ways that you can check your whether you're left or right-eyed dominant, but more people you're suggesting are right-eyed than left-eyed.
Yeah, I would have thought so.
Yeah. I'm looking at
Same reason why most guitars are made for people who are going to change chords with their left hand. You can get reverse guitars, but generally they're built that way, aren't they?
Well, I had a special piano, Kev. I had all the bass was on the right, the lower keys on the right-hand side, and it went the other way to the left.
You really are a wonder of nature, aren't you?
I'm joking about that bit, Kev. There must be a piano like that, I'm sure.
I'm sure there is.
Somewhere in the world. God, that would be confusing to use. But yeah, it would be interesting. I would love to use a rangefinder-styled camera or a rangefinder in the way that it was supposed to be used, but I've never been able to do that because of the left eye shooting thing. So he's right.
You need to go to eye school. Go and get your eyes sorted so you're looking through the right one.
I've tried it, Kev. I really have tried it, and it just doesn't. For me, it doesn't work. Everything goes blurry. Everything's a bit odd in the world when I do that. So no, it doesn't work. But I think it's a good idea. Is that in the We Shall Consider file? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's firmly in the We Shall Consider file. Yeah.
Right. Here's one from Jan Kruger. Hi, Kev. Hi, Neil. I enjoy every upcoming podcast of yours, so I'm not a professional, but an enthusiast. Well, that's all right. I love taking up your or your interview partner's tips and challenges. I know you, in brackets Kev, or Kevin, have explained that you often use your AFL button. I don't understand when you use it. I'd assume that people during weddings move around and the focal plane is always changing. In situations where the focal plane isn't changing, I understand it. I do mostly kite surf, snow kite, travel and people photography, and try to figure out where I can make use of it and if I have an advantage using it. Best greetings from the, get this right, Rummelsburger Bucht in Berlin.
Well, people aren't often moving at weddings, really.
Yeah.
But the only time that the people are moving relatively quickly is when they're running up the confetti line or they're doing the recessional.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they're mostly just standing around chatting to each other.
So how does that work when that's happening then? What do you do?
But then I stick it in continuous tracking mode for that bit. But other than that, yeah, they don't. I'm thinking back now to the last set of weddings. Everybody just standing in a room, chatting to each other.
But what about if they're on a... I mean, Jan's right about the focal plane. If you're shooting wide open, and I know you like to shoot wide open, we had a conversation last week about the f1 50mm, didn't we? So
yeah.
We're going fairly wide now if you're shooting that way. They've only got to move very, very slightly, and they're out.
Well, it depends how close you are to them, really. Mm. But then maybe perhaps when they move their head forwards, I'd probably move my head back. It's not and also you have to remember that unless you are, with the 50mm f1, I'm the only times I've used it, I've been quite far away. So that depth of field, although it is narrower than another like f1.4, still reasonably big because it's an APS-C sensor. So we're not talking about being right on top of people in their faces, shooting at f1, making portraits of them. This is wider, 23 or 18 mil these days. The latitude is quite large, really.
It's larger than you think by the sound of it, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's just not even a consideration. It's a misconception that weddings are this, big bustling thing. Everything is always busy and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, of course they are. And you want weddings to be busy and bustling, but mostly they're busy and bustling, chatting to each other.
But if
wine and stuff.
If I were to look though at my portfolio and choose the photographs that I'm particularly happy with, I'd say that a lot of those are grab shots. So they're the ones where stuff does happen quickly, where you think, pounce, got, bang. Does your system work in that way?
Yeah, I only ever use AFL. I never, ever use anything other than that, apart from when I'm doing that continuous focus thing. But yeah,
So I know this is something we talk about a lot. It's a question that comes up a lot. Just run through, Kev, how exactly you set that up.
So I don't use the new modern fandangled menu system with AF on and all that kind of stuff. I put the camera in manual focus mode, and then I just use the AFL button as autofocus.
Yeah.
And I do it very quickly. Autofocus is natural to me. I use my thumb. I can take 1, 2, 3 pictures with the shutter button. Camera doesn't refocus. And then I can move, and I can do that. I'm convinced I can probably shoot as quick that way as anybody who's using, standard autofocus on the shutter button, even potentially in high speed burst. Because as fast as you move your fingers, if you can move your fingers faster than the high speed burst, then you'll get even quicker pictures.
Yeah.
So
I don't think you could work any other way now. You'd feel hamstrung, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Somebody at that workshop I did in Edinburgh handed me their camera, and the first thing I did was pop it into manual focus mode, and then I forgot to tell them, and I gave it back to them, and they were like, "You've broke my camera."
It doesn't work. It
doesn't work anymore.
It's been kev'd. Right, let's go to Facebook. Kev, what do you have?
Hey, this one's from Jeremy Meadows. He says, "Hi guys, great show, yada, yada, yada. My question for the show is, what is your earliest experience of photography? Is there a defining moment when you caught the photography bug? Just shooting Fujifilm take you back to those early days, such as slowing down, thinking more about photos and a look of the image."
I didn't have that sort of photographic upbringing that people talk about, when they eulogize about their father putting a camera in their hand or pulling a print from the fix for the first time, and I've got none of that, sadly. But I did have an old Zenit film camera, and I'm trying to remember the actual one I had. Or would it have been Zenith? I don't know. Zenit or Zenith? Zenit. And the earliest photographs I really remember making where I thought, oh, this is fun, was with that camera. Probably when I was aged about 15, 16. But then I put the camera down for many years until my father bought me a Nikon when I was at the BBC and said, go on, son, you meet lots of famous people. You should start taking pictures of them.
So you do have one of those stories then?
Yeah, but it's not quite the story of being bitten by a bug, though, and I think that's what he's looking for.
Yeah, maybe. I don't. My earliest experience of photography is probably being on the beach with my mum, taking pictures of me with one of those funny oblong cameras. There's Kodak.
Yeah, the Kodak ones.
Those long-shaped ones.
Yeah.
No, nothing really. I mean, I remember when I went on my first honeymoon with my first wife. We went to the States for 8 weeks.
Oh, yes, you did.
Kind of West Coast thing.
Yeah.
And I bought at the airport. I remember buying a camera, but I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. Yeah, and I mean, I used it, but it was nothing. It was kind of snapshots, mostly of arguments, and. After that, there's no light bulb moment for me. No. Sorry. There's no romance in my photographic history story whatsoever. In fact, it's littered with divorce.
I blame photography on my divorce, or my divorce on photography, the other way around. Well, do you remember that moment though, Kev, when you picked up your camera? Because there was a moment where you just suddenly became, I mean, that glorious story that you've told a million times, so we won't need to tell it again, but that when you picked up a camera and you went home and you announced to everybody, I'm becoming a wedding photographer. I mean, that is your biting moment, isn't it? Your bug biting moment.
Yeah, but yes, that's right. That was the moment that I decided to change tack in my life. But yeah, that wasn't I didn't have wasn't kind of taking pictures on the underground or anything, I just wasn't. So
it wasn't really
my life is boring.
Well, it wasn't really a photographic decision then. It was a business decision. Is that what you're saying?
That's why I always say it's really lucky that I didn't open the magazine on a Chiropodist page or something like that, because I'd probably be on Feats R Us podcast now.
No, that would be horrible. I don't know what draws people to become Chiropodists.
I wonder if there is a Chiropodist podcast and what
there must
called.
Be. Well, let's look it up, Kev.
FujiCast.
What do you think draws people to become Chiropodists?
I know why it is, because they want to nail it.
Oh, Kev, we're back on Tim Vine jokes. Janice CL in Australia. Hi Kev, hi Neil. I've been using the Fujifilm X-T10 for the last few years and recently decided to pursue a day-in-the-life photography, documentary photography. I came across Kev's day-in-the-life work a year or two ago, couldn't get it out of my head. So, as Kylie said, so I decided, everything's musical today, Kev, I don't know why, so I decided I wanted to try it out. I completed a portfolio shoot with a friend's family and created an electronic photo book as part of that. Question I have for you is, if you were providing advice to somebody starting out in the day-in-the-life photo business, how would you suggest I go about building my portfolio and pricing shoots? There's a few questions here, so let's just start with that one. Building that documentary photo business, building a portfolio and pricing shoots, which I think is harder for starting with documentary day-in-the-life stuff than simply going out there. I say simply, there's nothing simple about it, I know, but becoming the more, in the traditional sense, portrait photographer, isn't there?
Yeah, and actually, they've started already doing the right things by doing families and friends and all that kind of stuff. There's your portfolio building going on right there in front of you.
Yeah,
that's all you can do, really. Same as I always say about weddings in terms of building a portfolio. I think it's fine to offer free or very cheap services right at the beginning, but only for people that you know or friends of friends. Whatever you do, don't offer it for free or really cheap on Facebook or strangers or anything like that. It's just going to be a whole world of pain.
I think I know your answer then to the next question, which was, for example, advertise that X is your full price, but there's a 50% introductory discount for the first X number of families. Oh, in fact, that's not friends, is it really?
That's slightly different.
Yeah.
And I just think that's devaluing your product straight away. That's immediately what I found over the years, and this is a bit of a kind of observation, is that people who really do get the documentary style, especially the family stuff, they understand art, they understand, they know what they want. They're probably not bargain hunters. Let's just put it that way. You want to be aiming at people who are willing to invest and spend money straight off the bat. That doesn't mean that you have to start at, $4,500 Australian dollars. I don't actually know what that is. That could be £1.50. I
think the exchange rate is slightly different to that, Kev.
Yeah, I mean, you get the point. So, I think I would start by targeting friends and families.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to do it for free, as long as it's, you've got the permissions in place to use the pictures. They fully understand that it's new for you. Get a handful of those under your belt, build your website, get your Instagram on the go. You're not going to be hitting page 1 of Google for Sydney family photographer anytime soon. So you might have to start thinking about networking, or you might have to start thinking a little bit strategically about in terms of, if you've got kids of your own, for example, school gate chat, all that kind of stuff. And even if you want to go down the route of doing Google AdWords, you could do that. I would avoid Facebook adverts. It is a tough thing. Any photography business is tough at the beginning, because you can be the best photographer in the world and have no business, and you can be the worst photographer in the world and have all the business. It really does come down to, sometimes it's just the toss of a coin, spin of a hat, luck of the draw, who all of that kind of stuff.
Is it the value that's placed on product that you're suggesting that Facebook advertising would not be the best route?
Yeah.
Purely value, because you think there's more bargain hunters using that platform, right?
Yeah. So I tend to, although saying that for Facebook, I do think if you are clever with your Facebook advertising, with your timing of it, and you can start getting your adverts, they're usually cheaper in the middle of the night, and that's when often it's the mums, isn't it, feeding the babies in the middle of the night. That could be a well-timed targeted advert at certain times of the evening, and the advert's cheaper. So maybe there's a strategy there, but generally I would avoid that. I would rather encourage people to pay Google AdWords rather than Facebook ones.
The question, you kind of answered this a moment ago, but there is a context to the UK that perhaps we can discuss. What are the day-in-the-life photographers charging if they're new to the genre versus seasoned photographers? So, okay, we can't put a price on it because we don't know what's happening in Australia with that product. And actually, I'm not sure that we really know how much people are charging. You don't do so much of this anymore, do you, in the UK?
No, I find it really difficult because I'm a bloke, and I know that and I understand it fully. It's easier to, or people feel more comfortable when they invite a woman into their home to do, what can be quite intimate pictures.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a thing. So yeah, I don't do too much of it, and I think the last time I did one was just before the pandemic. But yeah, there hasn't been any kind of inquiries or movement on that since. Yeah. Pricing wise, yeah, I mean, this thing about day in the life, is it a day in the life? If you're going to do a day in the life, you're talking about being there when they wake up and leaving when they go to bed.
Yes,
that's a long shift. You need to price accordingly. That could be, I don't know. It depends a lot on your own personal value of that kind of stuff in terms of time. If you're going to offer them product as well, it's hard to say that this is the price you should be charging. It's not easy also to just look at your competitors and say, I'm just going to charge a little bit less than them, because those competitors might have a wife or a husband who is a multimillionaire, and they're doing it purely because they love it, which is great. And I'd love to have a wife or a husband that was a multimillionaire, but you can't just say that's the market price right now. It's difficult. And as I always say with photography, it should never be about the product, and it should never be about the photography as such. It should be about your vision and what you see. The story that you deliver should be different to everybody else's. The style of it, the passion in it, the emotion in it. If you can somehow get that across in your pictures, then people will come to you. If your pictures are just the same as everybody else's, then it will just become, right, who's cheapest? Yeah. It becomes a commodity. So always make sure that your vision is different, not just your product.
Good advice. I think we should take a break for our last guest of the year, Kev, Casey Orr. So tell me a little bit about Casey Orr before we hear you talking with her as an interview.
Well, when I interviewed Daniel Meadows many, many months ago, I asked him to give me a list of people that he thinks would be interesting for the show. And one of them was Casey, and I've been chatting to her on and off probably for the last 6 months or so, and it's just been a case of scheduling times. And that time has come. Where are you right now? Where are you at this minute?
I'm in Yorkshire right now. North of Leeds, just on the edge of North Yorkshire.
Yeah, and your accent is a little bit not so much just Yorkshire, right?
No, I'm from near Philadelphia. I call both places home.
And what's your background? Where did you begin? How did you become a photographer?
I think I was a photographer when I first picked the camera up when I was 15, and in high school. I have been that since then, but. And I've done lots of different types of photography over the years. And I taught for many years on the graphic art and design course at what's Leeds Beckett University. So I've worked within, I find my feet are really in the art school tradition. So I worked within a team with other graphic designers, and my work is very much, there's performance and there's art concepts, and so that's kind of where I'm kind of situate, where I found my feet, really.
So it says on your website, Casey uses her camera to explore questions she has about, among other things, the lives of women, the interconnectedness of all living things, our relationship to nature, and notions of home and belonging. What does that mean? How does that manifest itself in your work, do you think?
Well, when I first kind of really started to look into interconnectedness and to explore that with my camera was after my daughter was born, which she's 19 now. And I really just felt like through that process, I just felt connected to everything. And it was really magical and amazing to me. And I just naturally started exploring what that might mean with my camera. And just kind of taking pictures and then looking at how those pictures relate to one another and wondering about interconnectedness. And I think that also started me thinking about the lives of women, and maybe how, I think because that process was about looking at the unspoken things and looking at how things can maybe be, you could maybe look at metaphor, and you can look at imagery and kind of decipher stuff. I started looking at women and maybe how they were presenting themselves, and maybe that the language that is unspoken about how young people and women are in the world. So this language of visibility that led to Saturday Girl.
And Saturday Girl is the latest book that you've got, and that's available now from Blue Coat Press. It's available now, right? It is available.
It is, yeah. It's out now.
So that book, I'm looking at the images on your website and Instagram and all of that kind of stuff, and it's wonderful because it just seems like honest photography, which is something you don't often see these days. And I think that, that's a powerful statement. Tell us about the story behind Saturday Girl and how it came about and what happens next once you've done a project like that. Where do you go from something like that?
That's nice to hear that you think that it's honest, because what it is street photography. It's documentary photography, but it uses kind of tropes of fashion and studio portraiture. It's a pop-up portrait studio with kind of bubblegum colors, but it really is about what's happening on Saturday afternoons in cities throughout the UK. So I would set up my portrait studio in an empty space in connection with maybe a festival or in a shopping center, in a gallery, something like that. And then I would go out on a Saturday afternoon with some assistants, and we just look to see what young women, young people, how they were and what they were looking like. And we'd invite them to come and be photographed. So it is about looking at kind of documenting what was going on in cities at that time, and seeing if you could read maybe the local culture, you could read the economic situation of a city, you could read culture in general through the way that a young woman wanted to be visible. So I ended up going to 15 different cities, a few towns, mostly cities, and I photographed over 600 people in that time. And that ended up being the Saturday Girl series. And it was about 2013. It started in Leeds and it ran up to just before COVID. And it was, how can you see like trends in society through the way that young women are, how they are out in the world.
How did you find on those Saturday afternoons, did you find that most women were happy to be photographed? Was it maybe like 1 in 3 were agreeing to it, or?
It depended on the place.
Yeah.
Some places they more kind of understand that art project thing, and other places it's not so much something that people are used to. So Manchester, in the bigger cities, in Manchester and Liverpool, people really kind of got it, and smaller places you'd have to maybe pull that out a little bit more. You'd kind of have to explain the context of who I am and what I'm doing, but it was great. And it would really, even that the way that somebody would present themselves with a camera is very different in London than it is, say, in Hull or Preston. And so all those different ways that people are with me, they're with the camera, and how they kind of are in the world they're saying multitudes about what's happening in that person's culture, in that person's history. Hope all those things kind of come through the portraits.
Yeah, well, I think they're beautiful. And I said about it being honest photography, and I think that's true, because I look at some of the pictures and it makes me want to know more about the people, and it makes me want to know more about the girl on the cover, for example, with the very yellow hair, and I think what's happened to those people since, what happened to them straight after that. I'm very curious about people, and I love photography that makes me think that way about the subjects. Now, it reminds me a little bit. So it was Daniel Meadows that suggested that I contacted you in the first place. And he obviously, or you may remember this, did a pop-up gallery himself, or pop-up photography on his bus, way back in the probably late 70s, maybe even earlier than that. What's the relationship with Daniel? How did you know him?
I've always been a fan. When I first came to this country, I was given that book by my future husband. He was like, all right, you'd have to learn about Britain, right? Here's one thing, Daniel's the bus. I love that work. There's a joyfulness about it. There's the adventure of the road trip. I love the road trip and its kind of place in photography, in photographic culture, and his very much British take on that. And there's a performative element. There's this, wild hippie bus thing. And he's such a joyful, he's such a beautiful person who is truly interested in everybody he meets. He really is wonderful. You can see it in the photographs. I've always loved that in photography, that sense of adventure. Yes. So, he's somebody who we've talked about work a lot, and he's helped me edit the pictures, but really it's just that performative element as well. So I think what I do with what he does, which another project called the Caravan Gallery. So there also they have a little yellow caravan that they drive around, and so it's documentary photography, but it's this performance and this kind of like setting up space, and I feel like I sit within that. So I very much kind of feel aligned with that work, and and portraiture.
I think it's really exciting because my style of photography is very candid, but this kind of thing gives me. It excites me because I think it's wonderful that people are almost, I'm not sure whether brave is the right word, but they've got the gumption, the ability to actually get up and go, this is what we're going to do. This is the project. And I think that's great. And I'd love to see more of that, generally in photography. On those Saturday afternoons, is it just a case of whoever approaches you, or would you kind of pick somebody out of the crowd and think they look interesting, they might have a story to tell?
Yeah, I definitely pick people out. So I look at people who have they've made some kind of effort with something that they want to communicate about themselves, about their values and their tribe identities. I look for those people and I ask them to come and let me photograph them. So it's like I want to photograph the language that kind of often is an unconscious language that they're speaking. And really, it's also this like hyper visible person who, often when you're just coming into the visibility years, if a young person and you suddenly realize that people are looking at you in a way that they didn't maybe the year before, and you just realize that there's a power in that and kind of play with it, and it can go, all different, it just can kind of go all different ways. And then maybe you're trying to work out who you are, who you want to be in the world. And you kind of, try on maybe a different persona and walk around looking like a punk or whatever. And you're just trying these things out. So it's that kind of stuff that I'm looking for. I always make cards. So I make postcards. This is always a thing I do to kind of give people a context of who I am. So I'll make postcards and they've got imagery on them, and they've got like color, and they've got text and contact details so that I can hand somebody something and they can understand what it is that they're agreeing to. But then they can also go and look on Instagram and my blog and my website and get a sense of what is this project. They can go into it further. And oftentimes they'll need to share that with their parents that they're younger than 18. So I want to make all that stuff really visible and clear.
Yeah. So that was one of the questions I was going to ask actually was, how is the technicalities of it? Do you need to get permission, for example, if you're in a shopping mall, and then is there kind of model releases involved, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I always, I would plan it ahead of time. So if I was going I'd always try and get into an empty shop, into a mall. I'd always, I would usually, a lot of times I was connected to a photography event or a gallery, and they'd find me a space. So it worked like that. And then the model release forms, it's funny because I recently, because I'm doing this new Saturday Girl series, and I thought I'm going to be really smart this time, enough of this paper, I'm going to get an app. And, I had all these problems with reading handwriting and on these model release forms. And I was like, oh, I'm going to get this app and it's all going to be digital. And, and the app crashed. And I lost everything from a whole day. Oh, so I'm back on the paper.
Yeah.
So, but that whole thing is just a nightmare, because now you ask for a young person's, your contact information, and is that an email? Is it is it Instagram? It's not the same as it was last year. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I kind of do my best, but I haven't quite figured out what the perfect way is to keep track of everyone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I can't even begin to think about that. It's just a minefield. But yeah. You're right. Modern technology and TikTok addresses and all of these different things.
I know.
It's like
okay, we're here. Where? What? I just it's too many.
Thanks to Casey Orr, and we return to Casey's second half of the interview in the new year, as we now take our holiday break on the FujiCast. If though you need more Mullins fix, then you can. Thursday, Kev dons his Stetson and takes to the airwaves on incapablestaircase.com. Country Boyo with the last show before Christmas, 3:30 p.m. UK time. Plenty of Christmas cheer, and he'll be doing Yuletide shout-outs. Then Friday, the photo walk on the Photography Daily podcast returns. This week we have inspiration from past guests as we take our walk together. Words of wisdom from the past 12 months of guests on Photography Daily alongside your letters as we take a Christmas Eve walk together.
I talk to them about being different, not being afraid to be different. Everyone's taking that photograph. Take 6 steps to the left.
And photography, much like playing guitar or any other form of art, really complements that because it's a task where you can be just focused.
I've always said that I've been very lucky to not be addicted to anything but my work. Yeah. I mean, I'm really glad that I stopped doing drugs, and I'm really glad that I balanced my life out a little bit.
We are used to really making a lot of hard choices when it comes to images. We've got about 2 million images coming into the National Geographic Archives every single year. So to do a book about the 21 years of the 21st century means you've got about, 42 million images.
There's lots of different forms of stimulus in terms of sight, smell, sound, but that's constantly shifting. So with every single step forward or step to the side, visually, aesthetically, everything's shifting all the time. It's chaotic. There's a lot to consume. So to try and make sense of that with the camera is quite a task.
You need to shoot from the heart to make work that connects with your, audience. If you're not feeling it, if it's not what drives you, then I don't think it will work.
You should always post what makes you happy and not post for the likes. Just be true to yourself. How many times have I looked at a photographer's portfolio and then there is one photograph that is in motion blur, or it may not even be on purpose, but it's just slightly blurred, and they go really quickly through it. I'm like, wait, what was that?
At the end of it, I thought, this is a complete stranger I've got some really nice portraits of. So I thought, well, that could be a project in itself.
That's what I wanted to show with this book, that you can be creative regardless where you live, regardless of what camera you have. You can do this.
You've got a composition in front of you, you've got a moment in front of you, and you really can just take the time to create the best image that you see in your mind.
That's the kind of cheer we'll be spreading. Photography Daily is available wherever you get your podcasts and on photographydaily.show. Right, back to your questions. Before we dig into the Facebook and the email, Kev, what are your plans for 2022?
So 2022, I'm going to do 1 year of no alcohol for a start.
Are you?
Yeah, and I've made it public now, so I have to hold myself accountable.
We've done that before, and it lasted 3 days.
No. I did. The most I've ever attempted to do it was 2 months, in which I did 2 months before I went to Spain.
Oh, you did? No, to be fair to you, you did. Yes, you did.
I did.
But then you sunk a battleship with it in Spain.
I did as soon as I went to Spain. Yeah. It won't be a problem. I won't find it difficult, and if I do find it difficult, that's worrying. Now, I have to say,
is Gemma taking part in this as well? Because one of the,
she is.
Right, that's great, because the whole thing you've always said is that Gemma returns home with a, see, there we go, with a bottle of red and a bottle of white, and you say, well, I suppose it'd be rude not to.
Yeah, no, absolutely, we're both going to do it.
Good.
And I'm going to hopefully get my black belt if I put enough effort into it.
Yeah.
I need to win 10 fights, which is not an easy task.
Is that a lot?
Yeah,
it's
quite a lot. And the annoying thing is, I did it when I was 19, but I lost the piece of paper.
Do you have to do 10 in a row?
You can do 10 in a row. You can do a lineup, or you can do it over a period of time, but they have to be other people who are going for their black belts as well. So,
not easy then.
No, not easy at all, especially at my age.
And these are all age groups, or can you choose your age group as those?
No, it's all done on weight. So you'd fight people who are in the same weight category as you. So they could be 18, or they could be old like me. So yeah, that's my ambitions are those two things.
That's a good ambition. Black belt, Kev. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Black belt, no alcohol. You're going to be the picture of health.
Yeah, well, I hope so, because at the minute I don't feel like it.
No.
And I feel like, before I'm 50, I want to kind of get myself in a better state,
decent shape.
Yeah, maybe my hair will grow back.
I think, Kev, I don't think it works that way. There are all sorts of potions and lotions you can buy, but I don't think any of them work. The Japanese were inventing the hair growth pill, weren't they, at one stage?
Were they?
Yeah, there was a Japanese company that was working on it that were very, very close, and it was looking like it was all go, and then suddenly it sort of all went a bit south. Around about the time COVID happened, actually.
You don't see many. I'm trying to think about Japanese. You do see some Japanese men with who have gone bald, but generally, you don't. Generally, they're well-haired people.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that it all slipped from the head onto the chest. What was all that about? And into the ears. Please, for heaven's sakes.
You need to go to the Turkish barbers, get that sorted out.
Yeah, get your ears burned off. Right, questions. Let's go. Do you want to go Facebook first? Go on, go Facebook first, because we haven't got so many email ones.
Okay, Graham Scally says, Hi chaps, question on wedding photography gear. I have seen wedding photographers bring with them a few primes and maybe a zoom. Could you shoot a whole wedding on a lens such as a 16-80? And have you ever done a gig on a single zoom lens, or does it restrict you in low light situations, or are the image quality issues a problem?
Well, in my original days of shooting weddings, I did shoot all zooms for a while. It was 24-70 and a 24-105, or 70-200 probably. With a Canon setup with the original 5D for a while before I really started using primes.
Yeah, I mean, I would never shoot a whole wedding 16-80 because it's an f4 lens. So you need, if you're going to be shooting with zooms, you definitely want to be looking at f2.8 lenses at the minimum.
Yeah,
and obviously primes are faster than that. So people do shoot with the 24-70 on in the Canon Nikon world, and what was the other one that they always used to use? 70-200.
70-200, yeah, that was sort of staple diet, wasn't it?
Yeah, you can do it. Depends on your style, doesn't it? A lot of people shoot with those zooms and produce great work. But yeah, I would be thinking of at least an f2.8 zoom, the one that starts at least f2.8. If you've got a variable aperture zoom, then you've got a fighting chance. But an f4 lens, not so good.
Once you start using primes, though, you that's it. I don't think you look back as a wedding photographer.
I never really, even when I shot Canon, I think I definitely had the 70-200,
which you used to use
for rugby.
Rugby, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm fairly sure I started off the bat with 35 1.4. I think it was 1.4 lens, and then the 85 1. Was that an 85 1.2?
Yeah, there was. Well, there's the 1.2, and there was the 1.8.
Oh, no. This was the big, heavy one.
Yeah, the big, heavy one. That used to... I mean, you could bring up a whole family, send the kids to university, and enter your twilight years before the thing actually focused.
Not with back button focusing. It was fine.
Was it?
Yeah. I use it all the time.
Should have gone that route then.
No problems. Yeah.
But you could never use it. It was not speedy. And if you needed to react to a moment, I'm sorry, back button, front button, where button, untucked button, wherever you want a button, it just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, maybe. I got some happy pictures with it. I did like that lens, but it was heavy, and it was. Yeah, you're right. It was slow, but it was. I don't think it was particularly much slower than 60mm macro lens that Fujifilm have. I think it's probably in the same ballpark as that.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah, I reckon so. Yeah.
Focus once, shoot many times. Back button focusing is your friend.
You should have that on t-shirt.
There endeth the lesson.
Yeah. Dan O'Reilly. I am 18 and in college. I'm currently going through the annoying process of applying to university, but after the new year, I plan on trying to make some money through photography. Why is it an annoying process of being somebody who never went to university? I went straight out into the world of work, I did. Is it an annoying process, Kev? Was it, you went to uni? You're clever.
I did, but it was a long time ago. I do recall it being a little bit annoying. You had to, in some cases, you had to go down for interviews and open days, various things like that, and you then had they would make you an offer. So they would say, right, we'll accept you on this course if you get 2 A's and a B or whatever. And then obviously you had the stress and the worry of getting those grades. And if you didn't, they throw you into this thing called clearing, which is basically all of the spaces that haven't been filled in other places that you then, it's like an auction effectively. I can't remember whether I went through clearing or not and ended up in Bournemouth. But anyway, I don't think I did go through clearing, but yeah. It was. I do remember it being a bit of a laborious process.
Bit of a process, right? He
Sounds like it hasn't changed much.
No, obviously. As a young photographer interested in portraiture, he says, how would you recommend I try to get work in my area? Or would it be better to focus on getting experience as an assistant? I don't think there's as much assistant work around as there. Well, it's not I don't think. I know there isn't as much of that kind of work around these days in the traditional sense of being an assistant, as you hear a lot of photographers that started their businesses in 70s and 80s would talk about. But that is a route. I think this goes back again to working with your friends and building up a portfolio, doesn't it? Yeah, well, if you listen to the interview with Casey, she goes around cities and towns around the UK, around the world, in fact, and goes to the art colleges and asks for people to come and help her. Yeah. On these shoots and everything. And, you get yourself a project, get yourself something to do to get yourself out there that's going to yield pictures off your own bat, whether that's, portraits of people in the street or whether it's a considered portfolio of work. I mean, I looked at his website and there's some wonderful stuff on there that's quite different as well. So then it's a case of exposure rather than getting the work, because anybody can do the work. You can all do the work. We can all get off our asses and go, on a Sunday morning or something and go and make pictures. Yeah. But most of us don't get off our asses and do those things, but you can. And then it's a case of exposure and, trying to get in front of people. And that's when you need to start throwing your work at curators, all of that kind of stuff. If you're aiming for that kind of fine art area, or you might just end up falling into being a wedding photographer like the rest of us. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it. No, I know. It's good money. We probably earn more than a lot of the fine art photographers do. Pandemics aside. I did talk to Dan. There's a particular, within his environmental portraits, section on his website, there's a lady there wearing a brown woolen hat with a nice colourful jacket, red, blue and orange jacket, and he entitled it Portrait of a Stranger. And I remember talking to him about it because he'd been looking for the confidence to go and make some, in inverted commas, street portraits, and that was his first. I'm so pleased to see it on his website because I think it should always remain there. That was the one where he thought, right, I'm going to do it, I can't do it, no, I'm not doing it, walk away, no, I've got to do it, come back, please can I have your picture? And that picture is there, and it's wonderful to see, because that is the start of everything. Yeah. Do you remember this time last year, you and I had a conversation about we were going to go into London and do portraits of strangers? Yes. And of course we didn't. And that's what I'm referring to. And we can't put the pandemic as an excuse for that because there's plenty of time. In fact, you can technically do it now. And we didn't because we didn't get off our asses and do it. Should we make that our 2022 thing? Yeah, but I'm not going to the pub with you afterwards. Which I know is what you're looking forward to, or I will, and I'll have a Nanny Gate beer, Nanny State, Nanny State, Nanny Gate. That's Nanny Gate, Nanny State. There's plenty of very good beers. We talked about the Guinness Zero. That's a good one, Kev. That I've been. That's right. That I've been digging into. I'm really looking forward to this. Actually, I have to say. I mean, I'm going for it big time before New Year's Eve. Are you? You'll be a shabby state. Additionally, there's one last bit on this from Dan. Additionally, the college has a great print bureau, which is very cheap for students, so I plan to get a series of prints done. How would you recommend trying to sell them, considering I don't have a social media following? Well, again, I mean, you can, if you're desperate to sell things, if that is a priority at this point, and respectfully, I would probably suggest it's not, or perhaps shouldn't be right at this moment. But if it is, then you can. Most of the shopping malls and things like that will allow you to rent a board that you can sit by and sell prints on a weekend, or you can go to the art fairs and all those kind of things. Plenty of people do that, but I'm guessing right now it's a case of trying to build the business, get enough
enough traction in that, that's probably where I'd be putting my efforts, especially if you're still got to go through university and all of that. But yeah, I mean, you will need money to get through university. You'll need money for the rest of your life to pay for it as well, I'm afraid, my friend.
Right, yours, Kev, from Facebook.
Okay. Indie Layman. Sorry to hear that Kev has run out of books. It's not my intention to be sarcastic, they say. The local library may have some treasures worth exploring. When the well runs dry, that is where I go when I want to explore photo books in more detail. And quite right as well.
Yes.
I did remember reading this and thinking, that's a very good point, because even in this little backwater town of Malmesbury, we have a reasonably good library.
Do you think they have a photography book section in that Malmesbury one?
Absolutely, yeah, quite right. So maybe I should go and visit that.
Yeah.
I used to get all my books from the library, my reading books, and I always used to feel I get a connection with books, and I don't like giving them back. That's the problem. And that's why I've got all those CCJs from all the libraries across the country after me.
I've got quite a few books actually that do have that I've acquired, not stolen, I might add, from a library, because I haven't been into a library for I can't even say how many decades. I do have quite a few though that seem to have library tickets in the front that clearly aren't being missed, or they have no idea I've got them anyway. Do you think I should start returning them?
Probably, yeah. My dad still does go to the library always. Yeah, ever since I can remember, we used to go into Newport. There was a big library in Newport. He'd say, "Right, I'm going to pop into the library," and my heart would sink because I know he'd be in there for about 3 hours deciding which ones to read. Right. And I'd go, and they used to have like a little kiddie section, and I'd go and flick through some stuff there. But my dad because he used to read so much stuff, so many books, he would put his initials on the inside cover, so he'd read it in the past, because he would end up taking the same ones home again, otherwise, like 7 years later. And I'm sure he's initialed half the books in Newport Library, maybe more.
What's your dad's initials?
DM.
So if you see DM in any of your books, if you're in that Newport area,
my dad's read it.
Mullin's dad has read it. Here's one from Robin Chun. Hi Kev, hi Neil. Great show, blah-de-blah-de-blah, etc. I shoot RAW plus JPEG and PP my RAW file, post-process my RAW file, but I found I was always trying to get the look of my own film simulation recipe. So why not use the JPEG, I asked myself, and hence this is now what I do. However, I do have some post-processing to the JPEG, usually straightening, colour boosting, some cloning to get rid of unwanted bits and bobs. So my question is, how much post-process and uploading can a JPEG stand before it starts to deteriorate? Thanks guys, and where can I buy a FujiCast mug? Well, we'll come back to the FujiCast mug in a moment, but what about the degradation then, Kev?
Yeah, so a JPEG is destructive. So the more times you save a JPEG, the less quality it will have.
Yeah.
So you want to, if you're going to make any adjustments, try and do it once in one go. Now, of course, if you're doing it in Lightroom or something like that, which is non-destructive, because you'll always have the original JPEG. But if you export the JPEG with adjustments and then you bring that back in and then you edit that new version, then that's going to be destructive.
That's one step down, yeah.
Carry on.
Yeah.
But obviously Lightroom and Capture One and all of those other tools are non-destructive in the sense that they store the adjustments you make in little sidecar files or within the software itself. It's when you export it as a JPEG and then re-import it and start editing again, that's when you're going to notice the degradation. And I don't know how many iterations you've got in that respect. I don't know, but yes, you will eventually. And I've seen it. I've got images that I've edited over the years, re-edited, because I've only had the JPEGs from when I used to shoot JPEG with my Canon cameras. And I've noticed, especially when I upload them to websites now, that there's a visual degradation in the image quality, because it's been through the mill a few times. So yeah, that is a thing. In terms of adjustments and stuff like that, I always roughly rule of thumb in terms of like exposure changes and stuff like that. I kind of say that a JPEG has about 3 stops of latitude, whereas a RAW file is probably more nearer 7 stops.
Right, thank you, Robin, for that. The FujiCast mug. Where can you get one? Well, you can't. There is well, it's not really a non-fungible token, that one, is it? It's not an NFT, but there were just only a few
I will be at some point in 2022, and I said this at the beginning of 2021, be moving the FujiCast website to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's going to manifest itself with us not having the backlog of shows until I'll do that over time.
Yeah.
But one of the things I will do is put stuff up there. Merch. Let's have some merch.
Oh, you can do merch, Kev. Is it time for merch?
Yeah, we can have mugs.
What mugs? What other merch should you have? Should have, if you like McKinnon, you should have a coffee range.
Coffee, yeah, helicopter.
Yeah, I don't know what else you'd have. T-shirts. Tees.
No, honestly, I'm jesting about this a little bit because I can get a mug, but I don't know. I mean, it's easy to do these things, and it will help because there is a substantial cost to running this thing, and so maybe I don't know. Who knows?
But there won't be any alcohol. Be sure of that.
There might be. I just won't partake in it until 2023.
But you're sponsored by a range of wine.
Incapable Staircase has its own wine.
Yeah, your show. Yeah. But by dint of that, you are sponsored by. Are you going to say I don't want any wine advertising on my show? I am teetotal.
Not at all. Just because I'm decided not to drink, I don't care about anybody else. I'm doing it for my own little experiment on life.
I tell you what, it's going to be really interesting as an experiment on your radio show because I don't think you've ever done one sober.
That's true. I might have to record 52 episodes before now and the 31st of January.
Yeah.
The 31st of December just to get them in.
Otherwise, Country Boyo is going to sound very different. Right. Have we got time for a few more questions? The last questions of the year. Go on then, Kev. Let's get one in each. Okay,
this is an apposite question. There we go. Use that word. 6 weeks ago it was sent, but it's more relevant now. In fact, Martin Ellard, thoughts on COVID passes for weddings? I've just applied for mine. We have a Welsh wedding photographer Christmas party coming up, and apparently we need one for the venue. They only last a month, so I'll need to renew mine as it will run out 2 days before my first December wedding. I didn't think this through as I didn't realize there was a 1 month limit. Otherwise, I would have waited another 10 days, which would have covered me for the next 3 weddings.
So he's done this wedding now then, has he? Because it was a...
of course he has. Yeah, of course presumably. He has. 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, of course. It's appropriate now, but see, the rules, as I understand them for COVID passes, involve events that are a lot larger than a wedding, unless you're doing these huge Turkish Greek weddings that tend to get thousands of people go to them. But of course,
in Wales, remember he's in Wales, so they've been ahead of the curve in terms of.
Well, don't use that expression.
Ahead of the game in terms of COVID passes over England, as Scotland have also.
Yeah.
But that whole COVID pass thing it does when you log in and you get your COVID pass for 1 month. If you go in the next day and do it again, it will just give you another month. So it doesn't, you never worry about it running out, because I did it for when I went to the rugby and then I went back to Wales for something else. Yeah. It just refreshed itself, so there's no issue with that.
How will COVID passes affect people organising weddings? Will they think, to dash with this, I'll wait till late 2022, maybe I'll do it 23 now?
Well, I've got a wedding in January, middle of January, and I just chatted to them yesterday because obviously final balance is due now, and we agreed that we'll wait until much closer to the wedding just in case anything kind of goes back. A wedding I did up in Scotland, there was a whole load of guests that weren't there because there was an American angle to the family. They couldn't get into the country. And the COVID pass thing though is for larger events. So I think currently it's 500 people, isn't it, or more inside.
Yeah.
So it'd have to be a pretty damn big wedding.
Different, obviously, in every country. I'm aware that in America, Australia, etc., it's very different rules indeed. But COVID passes generally, though, Kev, do you support them for weddings? How do you feel about them?
For small events, no, I don't think so. I don't think it's something that I would think, I think that would just be a chore all the time. But I kind of get it for large indoor events. Sure, I get that. I don't really understand the difference between large outdoor events and, what's the difference between having, I think the limit is 10,000 people, isn't it? So if you have an event with 9,999 people and you don't need a COVID pass, yet you have one with 10,000 people and you do, that seems very arbitrary to me. So yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not a scientist. They're doing what they need to do. I'll follow the rules to a certain extent.
Are you wearing a mask at the wedding now? I mean, I know that we'd both come away from being as diligent with a mask. We both can put our hands up to that one. But I've gone back to the mask. Yeah,
I'm wearing masks. I wore a mask on my last wedding I shot through most of the day. And certainly when I was close to people, I didn't wear it in the service or anything like that when I was at the back of the aisle and everything. Kind of was around my neck. But I hate them because it steams up the viewfinder. So I'm always, it's pointless really, because I'm basically pull it down below my nose. So it's kind of totally pointless.
Well, null and void then, isn't it?
Yeah, effectively. But yes, I am doing it. And the vendors, all of the vendors, the waiting staff and everybody were also wearing their masks. So yeah.
Last one of the year, Kev. Fuji X100V. I think we've had more questions about the Fuji X100, Fujifilm X100V than any other camera in the year. And it's just a very quick question from our friend Mark Dell, who says, QQ for you both. What's the most popular colour of the X100V in sales terms? What colours do you have? I have the silver. I always prefer the X100s in silver. They seem a bit more classy to me. Cheers, Mark.
I would say that the most popular one in terms of sales is silver.
Yeah.
However, I prefer black.
Yeah, I like the black ones. The only silver X100 I've had was the very, very original one, of which I don't think there was a black anyway, was there?
There was a special edition one they did, I think.
There? All right.
Eventually.
And then you had that one with, didn't you have one with snake skin or something, Kev?
Crocodile skin, I think it was, but fake crocodile skin. So Fujifilm in the UK, in collaboration, I think it was in collaboration with John Lewis, had this offer where you could get your camera, your X Pro 1, it was at the time, skinned, and they had different options. And I remember that Damien Lovegrove, I think, went for leopard skin colours
to go with his underwear.
To go with his underwear, yeah, it's very Damien, that was. And I went for black crocodile skin coloured. Yeah, I still have it. It's very cool. It came back in a wonderful box, actually, which I do still have.
Sorry, did you say a box, Kev?
Yeah, a special limited edition box.
You kept the box?
Only a handful of people have got. I don't know where it is, but I do. I definitely wouldn't have thrown that one out.
Well, you're due to have your studio clean out, aren't you? There we go. Which you can do at the start of 22 when you're sober. Sober for a year, Kev. Does that mean that if you do it for a year, then that is it now? You are sober forever. There's no more.
Maybe.
Yeah,
maybe.
Yeah.
We'll soon find out.
Well, good luck with it. Good luck with it, Kev. Good luck with the next.
Happy Christmas, everybody. Thank you very much for sticking by us through 2021.
Well, we'll be back in 2022. And keep sending your questions in. We definitely need them. Send them through the email, click@fujicast.co.uk, or of course send them or put them through on the Facebook group. We definitely need some more through there as well. As you say, Kev, have a super Christmas. A fantastic new year, and we will see you in the new year. Happy Christmas, Merry New Year, Merry New Year, Happy Christmas. What do you say, Kev? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh God, let's have a drink. See you in the new year. Bye-bye.
The FujiCast is an independent loading zone production. Email the show with your questions and words of wisdom to click@fujicast.co.uk. Email any complaints and political nonsense to our wives, who will deal with your comments in their own good time and in their own good way.